So picture this. You've got a completely blank canvas sitting right there on your easel. You have your acrylics lined up, your brushes are ready, and you have a very specific mission.
Right. You want to paint a luminous, truly lifelike portrait.
Exactly. The kind of painting where the subject's skin actually seems to hold a pulse,
Yeah.
where the fabric looks like it could just rustle if a breeze rolled through the room.
Yeah, that kind of hyperrealism is so elusive.
It really is. And today, we are doing a deep dive into exactly how that level of realism is achieved. We are unpacking a masterclass process behind this extraordinary 30 by 40 centimeter acrylic portrait of Lionel Messi in his Argentina jersey.
Which was meticulously crafted by El Gran Artista.
Yes, and this specific portrait serves as the perfect case study, I think, because the methodology forces us to directly confront the most persistent trap in realistic painting.
Oh, absolutely. The default approach for, well, almost anyone attempting realism is to look at the reference, find the local color, and then just try to match it directly on the palette.
Right, like if the jersey is blue, they mix blue paint.
Exactly. If the skin is a certain tone, they mix a peach or tan hue, and then they just apply it heavily to cover the canvas grain.
But the physical result of that direct application is, it's almost always this flat, muddy image.
Yeah, the paint just sits right on the surface.
Like a heavy, opaque blanket. It covers the canvas, sure, but it totally kills any potential for internal light.
It does. But the method documented by GRUPO RAIIM completely inverts that whole approach. It introduces this principle of optical mixing through the use of veladuras, or transparent glazes.
So the core philosophy here is that true luminosity isn't about the opaque pigment you slap on top.
No, not at all. It's dictated entirely by the light you allow to travel through the layers. The opaque method just treats paint as a physical covering.
While the glazing method treats paint as a dynamic filter for light.
Exactly. A veladura is a layer of acrylic so heavily diluted with medium or water that the pigment particles are spread far apart.
Okay, so when you apply it, it doesn't actually conceal the layer beneath it.
Right, it just alters the structural wavelengths of light bouncing off the canvas.
It's kind of like the difference between frosting a cake and stacking sheets of stained glass.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Because with a quake, you lay down a thick layer of frosting, and that surface is literally all your eye interacts with. But the technique demonstrated by Rodolfo Im operates more like a stained glass window.
Yeah, you place a translucent yellow sheet, and then you suspend a translucent blue sheet behind it.
Right. And when light passes through that matrix, your eye doesn't just see blue sitting on yellow. It perceives this vibrating, deep, luminous green that even changes depending on the ambient light in the room.
And that physical depth translates directly to optical depth. But, to understand how to construct that matrix, we have to look at the very first step Maestro takes.
Which honestly challenges our basic intuition about how color even works.
It really does.
Because think about it. The subject is wearing a bright blue and white jersey, yet the very first application to the blank canvas is Naples Yellow.
Right, a muted, warm pastel orange yellow.
Yeah, and it's not just the color choice that stands out, it's the physical application. He abandons the brush entirely.
El Gran Artista uses a sponge for this, and he deliberately offloads excess paint onto the palette before even touching the canvas, just ensuring the layer is razor thin.
And incredibly even. So why use a sponge instead of a brush?
Well, the intention is to optically tint the primer without clogging the weave of the canvas. The surface needs to maintain its breathability.
Oh, because acrylic polymers can become plastic and reflective if you layer them too thickly right out of the gate.
Exactly. By using a sponge, the pigment is pressed into the microscopic valleys of the canvas texture, creating this warm, vibrating baseline of light that will interact with literally every subsequent layer.
And there's a crucial sequencing detail noted by GRUPO RAIIM here too. The actual graphite transfer of the portrait's drawing happens only after this Naples yellow base is completely dry and cured.
That is so important. Graphite is notoriously problematic when mixed with wet acrylics. It acts as this loose gray contaminant.
So if you transfer your drawing directly onto the white gesso and then paint your base layer over it, the brush just pulls the graphite dust right into the emulsion.
Yeah, and it instantly compromises the chromatic purity of your yellow. For Rodolfo Im, preserving absolute chemical and visual cleanliness from the very first layer is just non-negotiable.
Okay, so let's look at the next phase, which is where the logic seems to completely fracture if you're stuck thinking about local color.
The earth tones phase.
Yes. We have this luminous orange-yellow canvas. Subject is wearing bright blue. And the next paints loaded onto the palette are earth tones.
Highly diluted burnt sienna, to be specific.
Right, a rich, reddish brown. And Maestro begins painting the entire figure, the face, the arms, the blue jersey, using this brown. It feels like self-sabotage to cover a vibrant sports jersey in brown paint.
I know, it really does. But that tension comes from our instinct to paint color rather than form. What El Gran Artista is executing here is actually a modern acrylic adaptation of grisaille.
The classical technique of establishing a monochromatic underpainting.
Exactly. Only instead of using cold grays, he is using warm earth tones to sculpt the three-dimensional volume of the figure. He is essentially treating the flat canvas as a block of clay.
Wow. And the burnt sienna is applied strictly as a veladora, so the Naples yellow base remains completely active beneath it, just emitting this warm light.
Yeah, and as the layers of sienna build up, always waiting for the previous layer to dry, of course, the shadows deepen.
And the planes of the face and the folds of the fabric begin to emerge. The form is literally pulling itself out of the background.
And to push that volume even further without losing the transparency, GRUPO RAIIM introduces a second earth tone, raw umber.
Which is a significantly deeper, cooler, more neutral brown.
Right, but the structural rule here is that the raw umber is never used to just blanket the burnt sienna.
Ah, okay. So how is it used?
It is deposited surgically, heavily diluted, and exclusively in the deepest recesses of the shadows.
Visually, that layer of raw umber serves a dual purpose then. It deepens the value scale, but it also acts as an optical neutralizer.
Exactly. It dials back the intense heat of the burnt sienna and the Naples yellow, bringing the overall temperature into a much more natural, organic range.
And managing that complex topography of light and shadow requires a really reliable method of observation, right? Because the reference photograph is packed with distracting micro details.
Oh, absolutely. The weave of the jersey, the individual pores on the skin, this is where Rodolfo Im relies on a fundamental cognitive override. Squinting.
Squinting, because by squinting, you physically limit the light entering your retina.
Yeah, which forces the brain to discard high-frequency detail. You stop seeing eyelashes and sweat droplets, and you start seeing the essential geometric masses of light and dark.
You isolate the contrast.
And without a strict hierarchy of contrast, the form just collapses. The squinting technique allows Maestro to build an accurate value map using only those translucent earth tones.
Okay, so we reach a critical juncture in the process here. The three-dimensional structure is locked in. The portrait has volume, weight, anatomy.
But it is entirely composed of shadows.
Right, the painting is incredibly dark. Yeah. So the physical barrier you face now is how to reintroduce light into this structure without resorting to opaque paint that would just, well, it would instantly obliterate that delicate matrix of earth tones you just built.
And the default correction for a beginner would be to reach for pure titanium white.
Which is the strongest, most opaque white available.
Exactly. But its chemical makeup is dense, chalky, and cold. Slapping pure titanium white over those carefully glazed shadows would instantly kill the optical vibration.
It would look like plastic or chalk.
Yes. So the solution documented by El Gran Artista involves formulating a warm white entirely on the palette.
Oh, so titanium white cut with a touch of yellow ochre.
Precisely. This knocks out the icy edge of the titanium, warming it up. And crucially, this mixture is then thinned down to a glaze and applied exclusively to the structural highlights.
And this specific application is what triggers the central mechanical engine of the entire painting, right? The mirror effect.
The mirror effect, yes. By applying this translucent warm white over the earth tones, the original Naples yellow base layer is heavily activated.
So ambient light from the room hits the surface of the painting. And because the layers of acrylic medium are loaded with translucent pigments rather than opaque ones, those photons travel through the warm white.
Through the raw umber, through the burnt sienna.
Until they actually strike the Naples yellow base.
Yes. The Naples yellow acts as an internal mirror. The light hits that bright, warm primer, bounces off it, and travels all the way back through the layers to hit your eye.
That is just incredible. The painting physically emits light from the inside out.
While the opaque method forces light to stop dead at the surface, the glazing method turns the acrylic polymer itself into a refractive medium.
It actively manages how light behaves within the structure of the painting. It makes me think about the mechanics of a tropical ocean.
How so?
Well, the water isn't inherently bright turquoise paint, right? The water is a transparent medium. The sunlight penetrates the surface, travels through the depth of the water, strikes the white sand on the seafloor, and reflects back up.
Oh, wow.
The ocean glows because the light is bouncing off the bottom. The Kansas in this GRUPO RAIIM masterclass is operating on the exact same physical principle.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. And the texture of the application plays a vital role in how that light scatters, too. During the application of the warm white, Rodolfo Im deliberately avoids overblending.
Oh, really? So the brushstrokes are left somewhat visible and broken.
Yes, because if the surface is blended into a perfectly smooth, uniform gradient, it just mimics the surface tension of manufactured plastic.
Right, and organic materials like human skin or woven fabrics, they have microtextures that scatter light in complex, irregular ways.
Exactly. Leaving the brushwork visible ensures the surface continues to breathe and vibrate. It gives the brain the subtle visual noise it naturally associates with living tissue.
Okay, so with the structural volume established and the internal light engine running, the canvas is finally prepared to receive actual color.
Which is the stage the inexperienced painter tries to execute in the first 5 minutes.
Exactly. Let's look at the mechanics of fleshing out the skin. The initial color glaze applied by Maestro is a nearly imperceptible wash of natural sienna.
Right, and it doesn't alter the value, the lightness or darkness of the structure at all. It simply shifts the temperature, introducing a baseline organic warmth.
But once that layer cures, the focus shifts to the vascular structure beneath the skin.
This part is amazing. In areas of high blood flow, like the cheeks, the bridge of the nose, the ears, an extremely diluted layer of oxide red is applied.
The visual logic there is staggering. Because the oxide red doesn't cover the underlying light and shadow, it acts as a literal optical filter simulating human tissue.
You aren't painting the surface of the skin. You are utilizing subsurface scattering.
You're painting the oxygenated blood circulating through the capillaries underneath the dermis.
Yeah, the transparency tricks your eye into perceiving an active circulatory system beneath the paint film.
And that philosophy of accumulating transparent veils is pushed to its absolute limit on the Argentina jersey.
Oh, the jersey is a masterclass in exploiting the specific optical properties of different pigments. El Gran Artista begins with a highly diluted wash of cobalt blue over the entire target area.
Now, cobalt blue is a brilliant, slightly opaque pigment by nature, but thinned out, it provides a really solid, vibrant midtone.
And once that's dry, the highlighted areas of the fabric receive a glaze of cobalt mixed with the warm white.
Okay, but how does he handle the deep shadows in the fabric?
To push the folds back into deep space, a layer of ultramarine blue is introduced into the shadows. Ultramarine has a completely different physical profile than cobalt. It is highly transparent with larger pigment particles.
Making it ideal for deep resonant glazes. And then the final anchor in the deepest crevices of the jersey is Prussian blue, right?
Yes, it's an intensely dark, staining blue with a faint violet undertone. So the resulting structure is this matrix containing cobalt, ultramarine, and Prussian blue.
But the critical factor in this chromatic richness is that these three blues never touch each other on the palette. They are never physically mixed.
They are stacked sequentially, so your eye is peering through a microscopic layer of Prussian blue, down through ultramarine into cobalt, past the warm white structure through the earth tones, and finally resting on the Naples Yellow.
That complex physical stack forces the light to refract in ways that a single puddle of mixed blue paint on a palette simply cannot replicate.
Never. And the management of optical illusions extends way beyond just color stacking. GRUPO RAIIM also highlights the rendering of the GURD details on the Argentina national team shield.
Right, because the instinct for anyone trying to capture that metallic sheen would be to just buy a tube of iridescent or metallic acrylic paint.
But metallic paints rely on suspended microparticles to reflect light uniformly, which often looks so artificial and flat within a highly rendered portrait.
So how does Rodolfo Im engineer the illusion of gold?
Using pure structural contrast. The methodology involved establishing extremely deep shadows right next to intensely bright, sharp highlights.
Oh, creating the high contrast map associated with a highly reflective surface.
Exactly. And once that intense tonal foundation is secured, a simple, transparent yellow glaze is pulled across the entire area.
So your brain processes the extreme structural contrast, detects the yellow tint, and instantly categorizes the material as polished gold.
Yes. No metallic flakes are required. The illusion is entirely cognitive, driven by the physics of the underpainting.
But maintaining that high contrast requires really dark values, which introduces one of the most volatile pigments on the palette, black.
Black paint acts as a literal void. It absorbs almost all visible light wavelengths and reflects nothing.
It is the ultimate destroyer of the mirror effect. If you lay down an opaque stroke of black, You instantly sever the light's connection to the Naples Yellow base.
Which is why Maestro manages this risk by treating black almost like a volatile chemical. It is used exclusively in its most diluted state.
Just merely whispered into the absolute deepest points of occlusion.
Right, where two surfaces touch and block out ambient light entirely. It anchors the bottom of the value scale without suffocating the surrounding layers.
So we now have a canvas supporting this incredibly complex ecosystem of layers. The structural earth tones, the mirrored highlights, the vascular reds, the stacked blues.
But the final technical hurdle is unification.
Yeah, how do you prevent a painting composed of dozens of isolated glazes from just looking like a disjointed collage of techniques?
Well, the unifying stroke by El Gran Artista is perhaps the most delicate maneuver in the entire process. Once the portrait is bone dry, he prepares a wash of cadmium red.
Cadmium red is intensely vibrant and naturally opaque, so I'm guessing it must be thinned down quite a bit.
Thin down until it is barely tinted water. And this glaze is not applied globally like a varnish. It is targeted with absolute precision.
Laid down exclusively along the transition zones of the skin.
Yes, the specific borders where the light rolls over the form and descends into shadow.
Oh, because in physical anatomy, that transition zone, often called the terminator line, is where the subsurface scattering of light through the blood is most visible to the naked eye.
Exactly. By glazing cadmium red specifically over these borders, GRUPO RAIIM shows how to harmonize the disparate temperatures of the cool shadows and the warm highlights.
It bridges the gap, just fusing the underlying anatomical structure into a single, cohesive, organic surface.
And then the absolute final touch, the spark that ignites the entire construction.
Pure, unadulterated titanium white.
Applied with a pinpoint brush. Just tiny, opaque dots placed on the absolute apex of the light sources.
Like the sharpest reflection in the pupil, or the highest point of moisture on the lid.
Yes. And because the entire painting has been constructed as a translucent breathing matrix, the sudden introduction of a completely opaque microscopic dot of pure white acts as a visual magnet.
It commands your focus. It provides this razor-sharp focal point that grounds the softer, emotional brushwork of the surrounding skin and fabric.
When you step back and analyze the architecture of this process as documented by Rodolfo Im, the divergence between the amateur and the master becomes almost philosophical.
Right. The amateur treats the canvas as a surface to be covered, just mimicking the final color of the world.
While the master treats the canvas as an environment, constructing a physical apparatus that captures, alters, and returns light.
The methodology employed by Maestro really requires delaying gratification.
It demands the patience to sculpt an entire figure in muted browns over a yellow background, completely trusting the physics of the acrylic polymer and the mechanics of human perception.
It fundamentally changes how you understand realism. True realism in painting isn't about matching the color of an object.
No, it's about recreating the physical behavior of light interacting with that object.
Which leaves us with a fascinating dynamic to consider regarding the evolution of art. I mean, we live in an era heavily dominated by digital painting, right? Where artists use software layers set to multiply or overlay to simulate this exact process mathematically.
Software calculates how a pixel of blue interacts with a pixel of yellow beneath it.
But no matter how advanced the algorithm gets, a screen is ultimately just emitting flat, uniform light from an LED. It completely lacks the physical topography, the refractive indices of acrylic mediums, and the true, unpredictable bounce of ambient room light traveling through matrix of crushed pigments.
It just can't replicate the physical reality of a Velladora.
No, it can't. So the next time you stand before a masterful portrait, whether you're in a museum or a modern gallery, do not just look at the surface color.
Look deeper.
Exactly. Shift your angle. Notice how the light changes as you move. And ask yourself, what invisible architecture of earth tones and warm light did the artist bury beneath the surface, just waiting to catch the light in the room and fire it back into your eyes?
That physical interaction really is the soul of the medium.
It truly is. Well, that wraps up our exploration for today. We will catch you on the next deep dive.